to see you guys.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, just for years, you always look for the face of the defense, and it was Kenneth Murray for a few years. Who would you say is the face of the defense this year?
Yeah, that's probably as soon as you ask that, who comes to mind? The nice thing is I think there's multiple guys that probably do, which is probably different than what it's been maybe in years past. I think about a guy like Isaiah Thomas. We've talked about him. We talked about him before maybe the production on the field maybe warranted just because of who he is and how he played. And you think about Nick Bonito as well as a guy that's probably somewhere in the vicinity of 800 reps as a member of this defense and playing at a productive level. But I think of Turner Yell, I think of Pat Fields, I think of guys that, again, you're talking about now 1,400 snaps of football for us. But I also think about Brian Asamoah, and I think about David Owebu, from a year ago, and I think about Deshaun White. So it's nice to mention a lot of names. And so if that's by committee, that's probably a good thing. So hard to circle just one.
I'm curious, your safety position, you're a couple of years removed from having to play, Pat and DTY every snap just about. How much better do you feel about that position and the guys that you brought in through recruiting kind of help with that?
No, we do feel better. It's some of the our depth in the past has almost been at times manufactured as opposed to completely warranted, if that makes sense, where you got to make sure the guys aren't playing every single snap of football. That position in particular was one that we probably rotated the least. And we've always said we want to play the best 5 guys in the secondary. And then put the next 5 guys behind them with the idea of playing at minimum you're going to play 10 guys back there over the course of a game. And so, no, just as you go through spring, and what happens in those moments, it's you got the experienced guys who have been in the fire. Then you got a real youth movement behind it. Now the nice thing is you're excited about some of that personnel. Keyshawn Lawrence comes in the spring, took to our defense exceptionally well. Had a tremendous spring, tremendous summer. And so that's when Jordan Mukes is a early enrollee for us that we're awfully excited. Bryson Washington coming back, after the freshman year where we played minimal, like so many of our freshmen, some of which had to do with the circumstances last year, but maybe a lot. So in any event, more names back there and guys from an athletic standpoint, I think can upgrade us defensively.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, they hear about your corners, your young corners like Latrell, and they see a guy like Justin Harrington, and they wonder, with his body type, like, could he be a safety for you, or are you set on him being a corner?
Without question, I think he could be a safety. One of the things for him was, comes in, immediately has surgery. Again, combine that with the type of year that it was. Not dissimilar from a timing standpoint, kind of where Trey Norwood was at this point a year. And in a lot of ways, and obviously we didn't have the spring prior to last season to see Trey coming off of a similar surgery. So that was good to get him out there. But I thought he probably did more in the spring than you ever would have hoped for, a guy coming off of the surgery as he had. And so I'm excited. Had a real good summer. I'm excited to see him out there. And a lot of that, stems from, where positions of need, length in the secondaries is something from we've placed a premium on. Obviously, without compromising speed, he has both. And then some of it's just, from a mental standpoint, put a guy in a situation where he can have success, very, very quickly, at least in our minds. So, no, that's always something that will be, evaluated, not just saying, hey, we'll go into fall camp with him at corner and go from there.
Brian Aber.
Yeah, Alex, I know we've asked you about this a lot about recruiting, but now that you've been out on the road and get to talk to those guys face to face, how has the tenor of things changed, given the improvement that y'all showed defensively last year and the direction that things are going for y'all?
No, I think, as always, respect is earned, and you hear that a lot, and you hear it a lot because, it's true. I think, as you're trying to change a narrative, there's only one way to do it. It's a results business, and you got to go out there and do it. I think when the narrative is so maybe run so deep, probably deeper than maybe in some respects is even warranted, but in any event, it's there. And so you got to do it. You got to do it again. You got to do it again. And I'm talking about on Saturdays and having those type of results. But top 30 defense from where we started and coming off of 2018 to have 5 guys drafted off of our defense over the last 2 years is proof positive that you go to the University of Oklahoma and have an opportunity to play in national football. There's a respect factor there as well when scouts, GMs, position coaches at that level turn on Oklahoma football. They expect now to see a certain type of guy and quality football. And that's going to put you in the upper echelon of the country in terms of having that many guys drafted. And we study these things over in a 2-year span, and obviously that number's got to continue. So it's the same thing when we talk to our guys on defense, as well as to the recruits. That becomes more the expectation, and it's proof to those guys that you can do those things at Oklahoma. So it's exciting to say not what can happen, but these are the things that have happened.
Done having to overcome those? You said that sort of the reputation that grew maybe bigger than what the problem was?
I think it's always ongoing. I think, fortunately or unfortunately, one game can quickly snap you right back to being something that you don't want to be. On the flip side is how fickle sometimes things are. You can have, a positive Saturday, and all of a sudden, it's all roses. And the negative has unfortunately a lot more impact than the positive. And so that's always ongoing, and something that we have a responsibility to as we sell these guys that the product is one that's not this year or one time or this game or this opponent or this one position. Because as those 5 guys got drafted over the last 2 years, that represents every position on our defense. And oh, by the way, they all played in 2018 on one of the lesser defenses in this country. So, which credit to the coaches and credit to those guys.
Jason Kersey.
Yeah, Alex, I know that you're big on motivation and psychology and those kinds of things. How is your approach different now than it was coming into 2019 when you're taking over a defense that had really struggled versus now you guys are expected to be one of the best defenses in the country? So, how does that change your philosophical approach?
It changes at times. I think maybe my level of respect for the individuals in the room has changed as much as anything, And I mentioned to somebody, Pat Fields walks into my office as a college graduate, plays 400 snaps of Big 12 football. When he walks in, I sit up a little bit taller, and that's just one example of a guy that's in that room. But there's the respect factor as you go through. I talk to those guys in a different way because they've earned it. When you're one of the better defenses in the country, and we're disappointed we weren't better than we were a year ago. Even you think about other opportunities to, whether those numbers or maybe opportunities in certain games to have those numbers better. I guess on our side, but. I think, beyond that, it's ongoing. Complacency's it's something that doesn't knock on your door and say, here I am. It's something that kind of sneaks in if you're not careful. And so that's something we're very conscious of as defensive coaches. What we did last year, whatever play that individual made on our defense, whatever play he made, he's got to make it again. Whatever play we didn't make, we got to make. Whatever play we made in the spring, we got to make it again in fall camp, and so on and so forth. So you don't get any credit for those things. And so just constant reminders along. And in so many ways, what you do is you double down on the things that you believe in. Okay, now let's try the good stuff now, whether it's motivation or defensively. These things we believe in. They work, and so as much as anything, yeah, you press down on the pedal a little bit harder.
Yeah, Alex, with how the depth has sort of improved since your time has gotten here, what's it like as you head into camp, from first year to now, just being able to see those competitions take place throughout the camp, and how much, different is that?
Yeah, I think it's more real competition, in the best situations that I think this will be 19 years in college football for me. And I think about being in staff rooms after practices or after scrimmages, whether it's spring football or fall camp, and the constant dialogue about, depth, where this guy belongs, and moving this checker here to be better. on the defensive side of the ball, or after this practice, this guy was a 1, now he's a 2, and this guy was a 3, now he's a 2, and then the following practice, the 1 becomes it's a constant jockeying back and forth, just guys competing their tails off to be members of your defense and ultimately be starters. And those are conversations, we haven't had enough of those, and so it's kind of that the 1's the 1, and let's try to elevate the 2 so that they can be a quality member of the defense and at least contribute, as opposed to, all right, here's a position battle and let's go see who's going to win this thing. And so you see that more kind of across the defense, which is exciting. I think we averaged right around 28 guys a game played on our defense last year, so you don't have to be a starter to contribute. So we've developed some depth on not just as we recruited, but also putting guys in the fire, and so that's helped us as we've moved forward over the last couple of years, and we anticipate those numbers increasing this year. And mentioned those guys, 5 guys getting drafted over the last 2. They didn't play every snap on our defense, and so there's not the most productive guys on our defense and guys that played the most snaps necessarily. So the more guys that play, the more quality rests for everybody. And so that depth's going to be critical, and we're excited for some of those competitions as we go through fall camp.
John Hoover. Lincoln told us that we're allowed to ask these questions today, but don't ask them throughout the rest of the season. So I wanted to ask about the SEC, joining the SEC. In terms of recruiting, we can't see the future. We don't know if you're going to be here or who's going to be here, but just wondering about the conversations that you've had with guys early on about, hey, this is this school, you're a sophomore now, you're a junior now, but if you come here, you're going to be playing in the SEC.
I think that's something that will continue and get cranked up as we go, certainly. I know what you know in terms of the timeline and all that stuff, so it's been very minimal up until to this point, specific to the recruiting side of things, because it's hard to gauge. You don't want to sell something that's inaccurate or pretend like you know something that you don't, but certainly at some point you got to paint the accurate picture as to where this thing's going.
Dean Blevins.
Alex, with all this SEC talk, it seems like it often comes back. There's inevitable comparisons to what the defense gave up to LSU and Alabama. It seems it always comes back to the bottom line. Can the defense be good enough to give that offense a chance to win? How much better do you think this defense is right now than where you were? Are you ready to take that next step?
Yeah, I think you're always, regardless of where you're at, you're saying, okay, whatever the product was a year ago, we got to be better than what that was. I mean, that's as a coach, you think that way because you have to expect every single player to assume just that. I mean, you mentioned the opportunity that's out in front of us, to play such a quality schedule in the Big 12. I think, for us as we talk to our guys now, again, there's proof. And what that proof tells us is that when we play a certain way, when we, execute, our fundamentals, we execute our defense, and more specifically do so for 4 quarters, then we have a chance to be a very good defense. We're not immune to not doing those things anymore. So that those issues that have plagued us at times, and the laundry list immediately comes up in my head, the inability to get turnovers at times, the inability to finish games. How do you flip the script defensively as you go through last year? Conversations are a whole lot different, after week 3, after week 4, and quite frankly, after week 4, even a 4 overtime battle against Texas, but how do you flip the script? Well, it's simple, but it's not easy. Well, you fight for the football, you get takeaways, and you do it for 4 quarters, and that's we didn't gain immunity from having those be issues for us. That's something that's a constant. We got to make sure that we continue to finish ball games. We got to make sure that. That product is more consistent over the course of time, regardless of opponent. And that consistency element of things is going to be a critical. You can't take the next step if you're not consistent. What's the next step? The next step is to be more consistent. The next step is to stop feeling questions about the defense at Oklahoma and what's the next step. And so we got a lot in front of us, and I think a good group to get that done.
James Hale?
You know, in the spring, you talked about how Redmond and Perryon really needed to get through a great summer because they just needed to play. They just needed to get out there and be active. Did you see that? I mean, you got the feeling they got through that? And they anchor really a strong, it looks like your best depth you've had since you've been at Oklahoma in the defensive line.
Yeah, I think we have unique depth, and whether it's the right word or not, I don't know a better way to describe it. I mean, typically, as you look at it, okay, if you're playing 4 guys in your front, including 3 down linemen and an edge guy and an outside linebacker, you want to be able to at least play 8 guys and rotate 8 guys across the board. You know, we envision having the ability to play right around 8 guys just in the interior of our defensive line this year. And so for all those guys, and expect 6 different edge guys to have some contribution, and that number can grow. Defensive meeting, first defensive meeting this fall tomorrow will be the challenge to them. That's our expectation. Now, if they don't produce at that level, then we're not going to be able to play that many guys, you know. But for all of them, I think your best football is something that is going to be expected, or you're going to lose reps to somebody else, and that includes some names that are mentioned. There's going to be guys chopping at the bit to steal some of your reps, and you got to think of it that way. But excited to get Jalen back out there and all those guys in the defensive front. It's athletic, and we expect big things from him.
Brandon Drum?
Yeah, you guys brought in a really good 2021 class, defensive side of the ball, and really the last couple of classes have been really good on the defensive side of the ball. This year's class, though, have you guys seen through the spring, through all the summer workouts, is there some guys that you feel that are going to be able to come in and potentially contribute right away?
Yeah, I think of Billy Bowman in particular, and I think of Billy as much as anything. Just, you know, he came in physically ready in a lot of ways, possesses, you know, tremendous athleticism, and then to see a young guy in the program immediately take to the weight program, what Coach Wiley and his staff do, to see a guy that you already feel is kind of ahead in terms of what a freshman walking through the door typically is, and to see what he's done is exciting. Now, you know, it's still a guy with 15 practices under his belt and all those things, so he's got to get better at everything. But just really highlight him as much as anything to, you know, as a pat on the back, because he's done a tremendous job. A guy like Jordan Mukes, as he come in, as a you know, limited football in his past as a defensive back, and a guy that, you know, you attach kind of the word project to in some ways, a lot further along. Give those guys at Choctaw High School a lot of credit, a lot further along than we anticipated. And some of that is because you didn't get a chance to go see him every day, or some of those visits that we otherwise would have during that class. Latrell McCutcheon, there's a number. Clayton Smith, what he's done from a physical standpoint, we knew he was athletic, but you know, is getting bigger and stronger. Ethan Downs, Al Weatherford. So and then Danny Stutzman, who wasn't with us in the spring, that comes in, you know, I think he did 225 20 times as a freshman walking through the door, and would you know, just about win every sprint through the course of summer conditioning, just as a competitor. So anyway, a lot of guys, but you got to go do it. So, but it's a good group to work with.
Myron Patton?
Have you noticed a difference? You know, you came in preaching takeaways and competition, and it sort of seems like you've got that. Have you noticed the difference between the guys, how you approach that now compared to when you got here?
Yeah, I think, you know, we you know, explained to them takeaways equal victory, and you know, the fact of the matter is they had a lot of victories without takeaways, you know, and so I did. You know, when you sell something, it's always easier, you know, to sell something to individuals if it's something that immediately clicks, and I don't know that it did. And so maybe my approach was wrong, not to suggest that it was inaccurate, but maybe the approach was wrong. But as we tell them, takeaways did equal victory. In this stadium, Kansas State had you know, a turnover margin on their side of things. We lose to Iowa State. No, they made an interception at the end of the game up in Ames that we didn't make. No, takeaways did equal victory. And oh, by the way, in the fourth overtime, takeaways equal victory by us finding a way to get one against Texas. And so a lot of that maybe we had to go through some moments to make that ring unfortunately, to make that ring true. And then I think as much as anything else, guys having to understand what the level of production is, and specific to the takeaway count, is it's not extra credit. It's the expectation. It's not extra to get the ball out. It's not extra to come down. Oh, my bad, I dropped the football. They're gonna, we got to throw or catch the ones they throw us, and we got to go, find ways to make plays on the ball. And so I think as much as, and it is, a lot of it comes down to that mindset in terms of expectation, and I think our guys feel that a little bit more.
What about the competing too? I mean, the guys know like this summer, they have a good summer normally, because you got a lot of guys, with the secondary linebacker, whatever, that think they can play, but they got to earn it to get there.
Without question. And then if you looked at what our guys got done this summer, I think we tracked miles per hour. We had 25 guys, I think defensively run 20 miles an hour or faster, and I think it's a flying 30, however you describe it. But anyway, as they get clocked, 25 guys. We had 41 last week, or I guess a week and a half ago. And so just right there, it's not okay to, and that's just one, obviously, metric, I suppose, but it's not okay to be the guy, okay, well, if they do it, I got to go do it. It's the same thing if you look at our body fat percentage, if you look at our 225 reps, if you just watch these guys go run, it's not okay to be, the second, second from the back, or so that level of competition, without question, is, and I think it's healthy competition. I think the guys have a healthy respect for one another, and know that they're going to have to be at their best, and that's going to drive this thing. All those guys continue that through fall camp.
We've got time for one more, Jesse.
Coach, like we've talked about a lot, your defense really improved, especially throughout the season, the second half of the season. Did it seem like the energy kind of changed in your defense as the season went on? And does it feel like you guys really have momentum going into camps this year? Yeah,
I'd like to think so. You immediately think, why wouldn't we have that energy at the beginning of the season? And I would push back just a touch. I think at times we had that energy early in the season. What we weren't able to do is sustain it. We weren't a consistent unit. And I think that level of confidence that our guys have now, again, it's earned. They should be a more confident group. I mentioned whether it's the weight room totals from a strength standpoint. We go up another 100 or so reps and 225 rep. Okay, we're a stronger unit. And I talk about 20 miles an hour. We're a faster unit. And so some of those things that's quantifiable. That's fact. And then combine that with the film, combine that with spring football and playing at a certain level, combine that with the experience that a lot of these guys gained a year ago, and understanding now that the best out there are consistent units. That's plan A. Plan B won't get you there, right? So we're got to build on that.